I met Renee when she was at LiveRail right before Facebook bought the video ad server. Subsequently, she's worked at online video platforms like Brightcove and Ooyala, amongst others. Renee adds an interesting vantage point from the off-YouTube universe, which saw YouTube grow in market share and dominance as others tried in vain to build their own and operated distribution. So I've been running an online video company now for 13 years, and when we started, we were part of the third wave of producers who kind of thought we could build our own and operated websites. So I, early on got exposed to JW, Brightcove, Ooyala. You've worked for two of those companies.
Two that have now sort of become one.
Exactly. So you've had a very interesting vantage point seeing YouTube kind of grow into this bigger and bigger and bigger thing. I don't know if the first question is, why should publishers even have their own websites and their own players? But how hard is it to get people to stay committed to that strategy when YouTube keeps growing and that's where the audience is?
So the first thing is, I think it depends on what you mean by publisher. So today, I think you can also classify a lot of marketers as publishers because they're creating a lot of content. And on the marketing side of the business, there's a lot of value in being able to bring someone to your website so that you can actually convert them from a prospect into a paying customer. There's some types of marketing where it's fine just to have all of your videos on YouTube and someone doesn't need to go to your website to make a purchase. So if you're Pepsi, Coca-Cola, any company like that, you don't sell products necessarily on your website. So it's fine just to have them on YouTube. They go to a store and then they buy something there.
Unless you're really not very thirsty and can wait for the Pepsi to arrive a few days later. Okay, but then what about the fact that if the audience is on YouTube, and I mean, I know you're talking mainly about marketing, but I guess I'm just curious of how much of a struggle is it? Is it, I got it from the side of well, obviously we'd rather have all these people on our website, but we kind of just said it's like boiling the ocean, it's getting the world to spin in the other way. What was the evolution in the mindset of publishers? Was it always reluctant? Was YouTube a frenemy? At any point did they embrace it and just said, we're going all in?
So there's some interesting things that sort of happened in the evolution of YouTube and just online video in general, online video platforms and things of that nature. And I think the value that YouTube really played was sort of unlocking the potential for anyone to become a video creator. So if you're thinking about media companies, you no longer have to go through that process of working with local stations and cable providers and figuring out how to get a deal and to create a video show. So YouTube sort of unlocked that potential for anyone to create a video and put it online. And that means media companies, it means publishers, it means individual people. So it kind of unlocked that opportunity. There's, in terms of the online video platform space, so the OVP space, there was potential back in the day of why people should use that, and I think there's still kind of room for that today. My favorite approach is using a blended strategy. So instead of just putting all of your content on YouTube and just putting all of your content on your website, you figure out a holistic strategy and meet people where they are. So YouTube is great for reaching a new audience. So someone that maybe doesn't already know about your brand. It's a great place to reach that new audience, and if you are mostly focused on getting them an introduction to your brand, that's a great way to do it. But if you want to bring them to your own site for a variety of different reasons, so this can even be for publishers who are looking to get someone to subscribe to their channel in some way. So maybe there's a paid subscription model there. And so that's really where the OVP space kind of fits in. And so really, if you want to, explore sort of different revenue models, you can do that. You can serve your own ads, you can charge your own subscription models, you can do things like that, and you're not, for better or worse, sort of at the mercy of YouTube and their business goals.
Do you think YouTube ever considered getting in the OVP business and launching its own kind of enterprise solution? Should it have?
I actually wonder why they didn't. So, many years ago, I thought that if they really wanted to go after that space, they could easily take over the OVP space. There's no doubt in my mind that that could have happened. that doesn't seem to fit with their business model, at least today. But I think that definitely could have been an opportunity for them.
So Google originally was thinking that their business model would be licensing, that people like enterprises and media companies would pay them for their search. And then life turned out very differently where they said, no, we'll just become an ad-supported business. So I think YouTube, which belongs to Google, their thinking was always, well, we much rather have ads. And if you think of like the only times when it's a subscription model, it's when selling ads gets a bit weird and creepy, like Gmail.
Yeah.
So if you want 15 terabytes of data, YouTube would love to be like, we'll give that to you for free, we'll just sell ads next to it, but do you really want them serving ads next to your private emails? You know what I mean? But I think YouTube, they probably always just said, we rather have just something that we give this away for free, get as much ad inventory, that's our, power, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, I think for them that is the bigger opportunity, especially because they started off in a sense of, broadcast you, like broadcast yourself. It's individual people, it's companies, and everybody is contributing to that. They're keeping people on their own network. That's the goal of YouTube, is to keep people on YouTube. So sometimes that's conflicting with what a company might have as their business goals. So there might be some conflict there, but YouTube's goal is to keep people on YouTube.
Watch time.
Yeah, watch time and to serve ads against that. And clearly they've done quite well for themselves.
They've done very well. So I know you were at both Bright Cove and Uyala, I think around 2010, so after this. But I would love to get a soundbite and your thoughts on what happens in like a media company's office or boardroom when you see the first time this notion of embedding videos. That embed code. Because I know what I thought the first time, and I was working at a company, WatchMojo, that had no traditional business. But so what do you think,
Yeah, I mean, that's a very interesting question. I think sort of early on, I don't think people exactly knew what to do with it, like if it was a good idea or if it was a bad idea of kind of using YouTube as their main player. I mentioned this before, but I'll go back to this in terms of, using an OVP or even kind of building something yourself. The value to that is that you have complete control over it, and you don't when you're using something like YouTube. So I think it was probably a scary feeling for people, or just a little bit of uncertainty of they didn't know if that was the right approach.
And how much do you think that helped YouTube's growth and YouTube's trajectory ultimately?
Yeah, well, I think early on, brands and like companies and brands were very confused about how to use YouTube. And honestly, I think they still are today. Like, I think that a lot of companies try to take their traditional commercials and put those on YouTube, and they don't work very well. That's not really how people traditionally consume content on YouTube. It's more personalized. And so I think there's still some confusion around exactly how to use it. But I think the fact that they were able to get so many companies, brands, and individual people, it's obviously something that is really increased their value in terms of people now go to YouTube to watch this content. And then if people are there to watch all of that content, they actually have the creators there and the video content, they can serve ads against it. And that's their whole business model. So I think it played a big part in the growth of YouTube and getting everyone to put their content there.
When it comes to storytelling, so with TrueView, YouTube allows people to skip ads.
Yeah.
So same question. You're a marketer. You see skip ads. What is going through your mind? Are you foaming at the mouth, throwing chairs at the wall? Are you happy that you're only going to pay if people don't watch your ad? I mean, it's, again, very different,
Yeah, so it's a love-hate relationship with skip ads. So as a consumer, if I want to get to the content, I'm often like hovering over that 4-second countdown where I'm ready to skip the ad. As a marketer, I think it just means you have to try harder. You have to make something that's really relevant and something that people care about. And so when people actually stick around and watch your content, that they don't skip your ad, it's that much more meaningful and valuable. So I think there's good things and bad things to it.
Where do you see YouTube basically wanting to take advertising going forward in the context of brand safety? What I mean by that is, there's a History Channel, which is a very lucrative franchise. They do documentaries on World War II and talk about Nazis, and yet have sponsors. YouTube says, well, we're just going to put Nazi history in a brand unsafe bucket, and we don't want to monetize it. Basically, we don't even want it on the platform.
Yeah.
So what does that do to advertising, and what does that do, you know?
Well, it definitely limits advertising in some way, but on the other side of it, I think for advertisers, you would want to know where your ad's going to be served and make sure that it's appropriate for your ad. And so I think that this happens online too. It's not just for video content. So for websites who are using, DoubleClick or AdSense, other types of advertising, you don't want your ad next to a really bad story about someone getting arrested or doing something that's inappropriate. And so it's good to have some controls in place. For companies that maybe have more controversial content, there are other platforms that they can use for advertising and monetizing that, but I think it's good to have some safety checks in place.
Do you think that will always just be part of the internet, or do you think that eventually brand safety concerns go away?
And for the foreseeable future, I think it will definitely be part of the internet for a long period of time. Just because there are some sensitive topics that, from a brand standpoint, you might not necessarily want your ad associated or your company associated with that story. And I think as people start to learn more about being authentic on different channels, even with their content, so it's not as commercialized as before, I think that making sure that you're associating your brand in the right way is even more important. So you don't want that ad in front of the wrong.
So you also worked at LiveRail?
Yes.
Were you there before or after the acquisition by Facebook?
Before.
Before, okay. So let's talk a little bit about another ad server. Take me through what impact did Google's acquisition of DoubleClick have on its business vis-a-vis helping YouTube get to the next level?
Yeah, I think it had a huge impact. It's basically they are the ones serving up the relevant content and serving ads against it. It's a match made in heaven for them. So I think it is a way for them to make an incredible amount of money and obviously fund some of the other types of initiatives that they're doing. Even outside of just advertising on your specific website, there's a network, so you just can reach such a broad properties there. So I think when Google bought DoubleClick, it really had a big impact on even the growth of YouTube. I'll give you a fun side story. You might not want to include this, but my second cousin, Kevin O'Connor, was one of the founders of DoubleClick.
Of course, yeah.
So we're related.
Second cousin.
Yes.
Yeah, no, wow, that's impressive. Wasn't he also involved with Business Insider? Or that was the other guy? Who was the other founder of DoubleClick? Okay, that other guy then is then. Okay.
I'm not related to him, so I don't know.
So why would you know? So Facebook acquires LiveRail, which I thought had the most impressive video ad server. It was really head and shoulders above everything else.
Or is it just because I worked there?
Probably related. Take us through Facebook and how they plotted out video and how they viewed YouTube and how they wanted to kind of kill YouTube.
Yeah, so I think this isn't just limited to Facebook, but I think a lot of other social platforms are doing this now, but they're finding that video it's a really engaging form of content. It keeps people on your site and watching longer, which again is YouTube's objective on their own site. And so Facebook and companies like LinkedIn, Twitter even, they're seeing this also. And so they really want to own that content on their platform as well. So in the early days, you could just use a link to YouTube content and share that on Facebook and LinkedIn and the other platforms, and that was fine. But now companies really want you to upload your own content natively. And really for that, it's because they can monetize it, they can control it, they can help with different products around advertising. But video is just a great way to keep people on your site. And so it's, I think that was really the mindset of Facebook in terms of wanting to have people there more and using video as part of that.
Final question. So YouTube is always under fire. Everybody's criticizing it. sometimes fairly, sometimes unfairly. What's its responsibility and what is its role and capacity should be in terms of what content it allows on the platform?
Wow, that's such an interesting question. So in terms of the content, I think it's just, I think that the terms that they have today are fair. Like, I think they're good terms, but the way that they are executed and implemented, I think there's some controversy around that in terms of things like hate speech. So I think there is a lot of responsibility there. I think that there should be some standards in place. What those standards really should be, it's very hard to draw the line at certain things of like, you don't want hate speech, but you also want free speech. So I don't have the right answer to that, but it is definitely an interesting topic, and I'm interested to see how things play out in that area.
So right now, YouTube has replaced television as the leading consumption platform for video content. We're talking billion hours of content consumed every day. What does that mean, basically? Does that mean that in the future, YouTube is the way we watch television? Does television start to look like YouTube? Does YouTube start to look like television?
I think that's already happening. So the interesting thing about what's happening today is one, I think really the power of YouTube was kind of unlocking anyone to become a video creator. But I think there's a collection of companies that together are redefining what TV is. So today when I think about TV, I don't think of just local channels and cable networks. To me, TV is Netflix. It's Amazon Prime, it's Hulu, it's the Roku channel. When I want to watch a TV show, those are the places that I go. YouTube is in this weird spot where it's part of TV, but it's also online video. And with traditional, like with TV, sort of the new wave of TV, Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, all of those things, even YouTube TV, it's really a lean back experience of just being able to watch. You can watch short form content, longer form content, movies, TV shows, those types of things. But then with YouTube, you also get this lean forward experience of watching short videos and how-to tutorials and maybe some types of things that you wouldn't watch on TV. So it's kind of this hybrid model, which is interesting. But I think the definition of TV for me is changing.
But so, which is going to look like, you're basically saying that like traditional television will have to adapt and look more like YouTube going forward.
I don't think it's just about YouTube. I think it's the collection of companies that are changing the definition of what TV is. And I think YouTube is part of that. YouTube is one of the companies, and I think if you kind of put these companies together, that is TV. And one part of YouTube is that. But the other part is that kind of shorter form kind of content. I'll give you an example of really what I mean around kind of lean back and lean forward, because I know this is it's a saying that a lot of people talk about in the industry. So last week, this is something that literally happened. I was in my office. I was looking up some tutorials for a few things, but there was a video that I had to watch. It's a pretty important video. It was on YouTube, 20-minute video. And I knew I had to watch the full video. I went into my living room, I grabbed a comfortable chair, I brought it into my office, I grabbed an ottoman, put that in the office, and I literally put my legs up, hit play, lean back, and watched that 20-minute video. And it was so important I needed to watch it again, so I actually watched it twice. But the reason that I did that is because it was still business related, so I still wanted to be in my office watching it, but I didn't want to have my hand on the mouse and ready to click away to any other type of content that's on YouTube. So I was literally leaning back for that experience.
What was this video? I'm curious.
It was actually a company video. Got it was about kind of the new direction.
Are you that undisciplined that if your hand is on the mouse, you're going to click?
Oh yes, absolutely. I'm gonna as soon as I see something that's interesting, I'll start researching it.
Yeah.
And so that takes me down a whole rabbit hole of something else. And so I wanted to give it the attention that it deserved, and I literally leaned back. And I wasn't even thinking about that, the lean back experience, until I did it. And then I was like, this is exactly what we mean by lean forward and lean back. I was literally leaning back, so it was interesting.
Well, they do say that the fastest growing platform is connected TVs now for YouTube. So,
yeah.
Good stuff. All right, thank you. Anything else? We're good?
I wanted to get Powtoon in there somewhere, but
You're wearing it.
I know.
That's the whole point.
There was nothing for me to say about
That's
them.
the whole point.